Hey guys, yes, out in the rice field again. We had a 36-degree day today. The sun started to go down, so the temperature's come down a little bit. It's probably about 34 now, pretty warm. So we always try to make our videos 100% about Japan. We try not to stray off the topic too much. In this case, we are going to stray off the topic a little bit and talk about something off topic. However, to compensate you for that, there's Japan. So the video of the visual part of this video is going to be all of Japan except for this head that's going to pop into the shot now and again. So 100% Japan, and then the speaking will vary. So I'll get to the point. Went to a house last night, some people that we know, and they have a small dog, small rodent-sized dog, so like a Chihuahua or something similar. And during the night, at different times, I'd be standing somewhere, and this dog would come roaring up to my feet, and really aggressive barking and growling and carrying on like it thought it was a Rottweiler or something. And it really struck me. I looked down at it and thought the thing probably weighed about the size of a medium-sized rodent, so probably maybe 500 grams at most, you know, half a kilo. I weigh 94 kilos on a good day, and I'm 189 centimeters tall. And yet this thing that weighs half a kilo and stands about 3 inches tall seemed to think that it could aggressively attack me and wouldn't get its head crushed like a grape. So it just struck me because it kept doing it during the night, and then on the way home I was thinking about it. I thought, how can evolution have evolved this small animal to do that? Because normally in nature, a small, weak animal like that would tend to hide, wouldn't it? And tend to be very careful about what it did, because, you know, you see that, don't you, with small animals that are fairly defenseless. Usually they make up for it by hiding and by being very quiet, and yet this thing's small and aggressive, you know, really aggressively coming. So I was curious. Also, get back on the Japan topic just for a moment. These small dogs you would have heard them mentioned in previous videos, because there's a boom at the moment. There's this lot. Everybody seems to be buying these small dogs. Obviously, if you want a dog in Japan, a small dog's the way to go, because most people don't have the space for a big one. So that sort of makes sense, doesn't it? But just this huge boom. There's a couple of family members of ours that have a couple of little dogs, and there's these friends of ours that have a couple of little dogs, and just everywhere we seem to go at the moment, you seem to get these barky dogs. We deliver some of the newsletters for our kids' school, go around different letterboxes, putting things in letterboxes, and quite often you go up to a house and you'll hear the little barky dog inside. It seem to be everywhere. They seem to be everywhere. So I was curious. I went away and thought, how has evolution evolved this thing, you know? And I don't know much about dogs. So I got on the internet, searched a couple of things I thought I might share with you. So it turns out that 35 million years ago, there was a creature called an Hesperocyon, which was referred to, I looked at a couple of things, you know, internet, you know, a lot of contradicting information and so on. But one page I read was talking about it being called the bone-crushing dog, right? And it was a fairly formidable looking critter. Obviously it was living in the time 35 million years ago. You know, there was some fairly formidable creatures around at the time. This thing was fairly ferocious and ate its share of animals. So that was interesting. Okay, and where did it go from there? You know, where did it evolve from there? So then 130,000 years ago, the grey wolf was evolved, right? It evolved into the grey wolf. So 130,000 years ago. And then, since then, humans have domesticated animals, and then through selective breeding and that sort of thing, for different reasons, we've developed 150 breeds of dog, and of course, depending on what we wanted them for, right? So, you know, you've got your guard and attack dogs, you know, for protection. You evolved the grey wolf into these big ferocious things, domesticated grey wolves to protect your families and your friends and your communities. And then, you know, tracking and sniffer dogs, so you get your bloodhounds and all those sort of guys, and your hunting dogs, and your cattle and sheep dogs evolved because they were good at those particular skills, you know, herding sheep, herding cattle. And then we've evolved the Fifis, right? So the Fifis, again, I don't know much about dogs, but you know the Fifis. The Fifis are the miniature poodles, or the Chihuahuas, or the other little dogs, the rodent-sized dogs, right? And we've evolved them not to do anything, right? Just have servants. So we've evolved them just to have servants. So in their lives, they lie around on sofas and velvet cushions, and then when it's time to go for a walk, and we see this in Japan all the time, when it's time to go for a walk, sometimes they walk, but often they choose not to walk, and they're carried. And we see that all the time around where we live. People walking the dog, and the dog's under their arm, and they're walking along with the Fifi under their arm, you know, and then occasionally they put it down, and Fifi does its business there on the road, and then the servant picks up the business and puts it in a plastic bag, and then picks up Fifi and it wipes its bum. Quite often we see that quite a bit here. They wipe their bums for them, and then carry on down the street carrying the Fifi. Or occasionally they'll be in baby carts. That's the other thing too. Occasionally we see one that chooses to walk, but more often than not they prefer the servants to carry them or wheel them in a baby carriage. So that's interesting, isn't it? So what else did I find? Oh, the velvet cushions, yeah, the sofas, sleeping on people's beds, of course. You know, the people that we know, the dogs, the Fifis run the house, you know, and the people really are the servants. You know, they feed them tasty little morsels from expensive little exquisite food cans, you know, that sort of thing. So we know people in Australia had cattle dogs, you know, and they'd throw them a piece of sheep, you know, a leg of a sheep or something like that to eat and to chew on. But of course the Fifis, you know, they have those little cans, tiny little cans with really expensive lean cuisine, whatever they have in those things, those expensive little meat cans, you know, for them. What did I write about that? That was quite, yeah, they're fed expensive exotic morsels from tiny cans. It's true, isn't it? It's true, tiny little exquisite, and they've evolved to be really fussy as well. You know, those sort of working dogs, you can throw them pretty much anything and they'll eat it. Grey wolves would have probably eaten anything that moved, wouldn't they? But Fifi's, you know, very fussy. So if they don't like the look of it, they'll turn up their nose and growl at their servant, you know, and go on their way. Incidentally, that dog that triggered this silly video didn't just bark at us, it barked at the man of the house as well. It like the woman picked it up and it licked her face and licked her lips. It licked, 1 minute it'd be on the thing licking its bits, and the next minute she'd be holding it and it would lick her mouth, and she let it lick her mouth, you know, and it loved her, it adored her. But you could see it thought it was the alpha in that house, you know, and it'd bark at the man of the house, at that lady's husband, and had no respect for him at all, you know. So I don't know. So yeah, they're fed expensive exotic morsels from tiny cans, carried from place to place. Oh yeah, the other ones are the pet friendly, and we've talked about this on previous videos that were more on topic, but the pet friendly cafes and hotels, because the Fifi thing is booming at the moment in Japan, Fifi friendly cafes and hotels are also booming, which for people who don't have dogs, it tends to put us off, because we don't really want to go sit in a cafe surrounded by dogs shedding hair, you know. So those of you who love dogs, by the way, this isn't a criticism of dogs, it's more of a criticism of humans, what we've done to these animals, right, that were sort of formidable grey wolves, and what we've done to them for them to end up like this, you know, sort of helpless little aggressive little nasty little critters. But yeah, the pet friendly cafes and hotels are huge here, and of course you go to one of them, you're not going to see a big ferocious dog, are you? It's going to be lots of little Fifis, isn't it, in the pet friendly cafes and the pet friendly hotels. Speaking about ferocious dogs too, recently when we were doing that, delivering the school newspaper thing, one particular house had a sign out the front that said beware of the dog, and you do see them here sometimes, and usually if there is a dog, usually hear it inside, you know, and it's sort of a joke, because on the picture, on the sign, has this big ferocious dog face, you know, and beware of the dog, yeah, sure, there's a Fifi in there for sure. And over the fence came this big Rottweiler looking thing, and it actually had its front of its paws and its head over the top of the fence and was just angry. It was really scary, to the point where it looked like it could either knock the fence over or get over the fence. And to the point where I was looking down the street thinking I could get up that light post, you know, I could get on top of that big car, you know. So they do exist, big ferocious dogs like that. They're rare in Japan. They are rare big dogs because most people can't have them, but we're out in the countryside and that place had a bit of land and they had a big ferocious Rottweiler looking thing. So yeah, I wrote here, humans should be ashamed. This all got done like 1 o'clock in the morning after we left our friend's house and went home. I was on the internet looking at, oh really, 150,000 years ago, grey wolves. Oh, that's interesting. Humans should be ashamed. Then the other funny thought I had too was not just the way it responded to me, but also I was thinking, how would it survive out here? You know, like if you let that Rottweiler go out in the wild, it'd probably get by, wouldn't it? It'd find something to eat, wouldn't it? But I was thinking about the Fifis and I thought, what would happen to a Fifi out here? You know, there'd be a snake around here somewhere that would demolish a Fifi, that would grab hold of a Fifi and eat it, right? There'd be all sorts of animals out here that'd be quite happy to eat a Fifi. There's, you know, some parts of Japan have got bears, they'd eat a Fifi, but there'd be other animals around here too, you know. Tanuki would probably, Tanukis are pretty big sometimes. Those what do you call that in English? With the black eyes is a tanuki. It's like a raccoon. They call it a raccoon dog if you look at the translation, but it really doesn't look like a raccoon, but it's a big critter. And those things would probably eat a Fifi as well. And then even the birds, you get out here and there's big birds out here sometimes. You can just imagine one of these big birds swooping down and picking up a Fifi and taking it to great height and dropping it, you know, and then eating what was remaining of it after it hit the ground. They wouldn't last, would they? If you brought a Fifi out here, you know, yeah, and brought it out here and let it go, wouldn't last, would it? Because it's got all the instincts, and again, not the dog's fault. The humans have bred all its survival instincts right out of it, right? It's used to lying on a velvet cushion and eating out of little pet cans and having its bum wiped for it and having its poo picked up and being carried down the street. Walking across the rice field would probably kill a Fifi on its own, wouldn't it? Because it's not used to walking anywhere. It's used to being carried everywhere and wheeled in baby carts and things like that. So, so just a silly thing. So look, sometimes our videos are about Japan and they touch on other topics, you know, or topics that would relate to other countries as well. This is the opposite. This is really a broad topic that's world-based, because every country's got Fifis, right? We've evolved them all around the world, haven't we? And interbred them and stuff until we've created these Fifis all around the world. You'll notice I keep one eye on the ground here because there's a lot of snakes out in the rice fields. You've got to watch out for them when you stand still for too long. But, you know, obviously this topic, and again, if you're a Fifi owner and you love your Fifi and you feed it small cans of exquisite exotic foods and you love your Fifi, that's great. It wasn't really a go at the dog. We love animals. We love animals. Dogs are okay too, but we love the animals. This is more of a observation about what humans have done over the years to evolve these things that just want to lie around on velvet cushions and be fed exquisite foods and carried around the countryside. and we've totally bred all survival instincts out of them altogether, haven't we? Where, you know, how long would a Fifi last out here? 24 hours if it was lucky. And because all those things about usually small animals stay quiet and secretive and hide, you know, a Fifi would be walking around here barking at everything and carrying on and drawing attention to itself, wouldn't it? Until eventually some other critter would look down at it and go, you know, I could probably eat that before dinner. Anyway, just a bit of silliness. If there's anyone left still watching this, I hope you got a giggle out of it, because it cracked me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Not quite as funny now as it was at 1 o'clock in the morning, but there you go. So, another rice field here. This one was planted obviously a little bit before the one that we showed you recently. This one, you can see the heads at the top. They're not called heads. Somebody actually mentioned on that last video what they're called. Can't remember. Anyway, you can see the bits at the top that have got the rice grains in them. This one, they're starting to get a bit heavier. And you can see the colour, it's not quite as green. It's a sort of a lighter colour. So that means that this field is a bit closer to being harvested than that one we showed you in the last video. But it's still a ways off. It's still a ways off. It still needs to, the rice grains need to get bigger, the heads on the top need to get bigger, taller, more yellow, and they start to lean over and get heavy, and then they'll bring through the harvesters and harvest them. So probably a few more weeks left on this. So anyway, that was a bit of silliness for you. Get back in the car and hide in the air conditioning again now. It's hot and steamy. Anyway, I hope someone got a giggle out of that. Next time you see one of those small dogs, I hope you think Fifi. More videos coming soon.